What happens when one of Hollywood's most gentle souls, the man who built his reputation on kindness and humility, finally reaches his breaking point, live on national television? What unfolded on The View wasn't a debate, it was a televised earthquake. Cameras rolled, the audience cheered, and for a while, everything seemed ordinary. Before we dive into this incredible story, make sure you hit that subscribe button and let me know in the comments what you think really caused Keanu Reeves to completely lose it on live television. But beneath the studio lights, a storm was building, and no one, not the hosts, not the viewers, not even Keanu Reeves himself, was ready for the moment when calm would turn into fire. The show started like any other morning broadcast. The audience clapped as the theme music echoed through the studio. The co-hosts laughed, trading light remarks, unaware that their next guest would deliver one of the most unforgettable confrontations daytime television had ever seen. And then he walked in. Keanu Reeves, dressed in a simple black suit, clean-cut, modest, the picture of quiet confidence. There was no grand entrance, no swagger, no hint of ego. Just that familiar smile, the same one that had made him beloved across the world. The crowd went wild, applauding him as if he were an old friend they hadn't seen in years. Keanu waved gently, took his seat, and greeted everyone with that soft, genuine tone only he could pull off. "Welcome to The View, Keanu," Whoopi Goldberg said warmly, smiling across the table. "Thank you for having me," Keanu replied. "It's really great to be here with all of you." The interview started smooth as silk. They talked about his latest film, his dedication to storytelling, his love of motorcycles, his down-to-earth lifestyle. Everything about him felt calm, centered, almost zen-like. The audience was mesmerized. Every answer he gave showed grace and honesty. He never bragged, never made it about himself. For the first 10 minutes, it was perfect television, until Joy Behar, who had been unusually quiet, decided it was her time to strike. Anyone who's followed The View knows what that silence means. When Joy isn't talking, she's loading ammunition. And sure enough, she sat there with that smirk, half amusement, half provocation, tapping her pen against the table like a warning signal. Then, without any buildup, she leaned forward and cut Keanu off mid-sentence. "You know, Keanu," she said, her tone casual but sharp, "I've always wondered something about you." The room changed in an instant. Even the other co-hosts felt it. They exchanged glances, nervous smiles, waiting to see where she was going with this. Keanu looked at her, still calm, still kind. "Of course," he said quietly. "What would you like to know?" Joy tilted her head slightly, her eyes narrowing just enough to reveal her real intent. "You've built this reputation of being this incredibly humble, generous guy, the Hollywood Good Samaritan. But tell me something. Is any of that real? Or is it just the best PR strategy in movie history?" The silence that followed was suffocating. You could hear the faint buzz of the studio lights. The crowd didn't know whether to laugh or gasp. Even Whoopi blinked in surprise. It wasn't the kind of question anyone expected, especially not for a man known for avoiding drama. Keanu's expression barely shifted, but the energy in the room changed. His smile faded slightly, replaced by something focused, unreadable. "I'm sorry," he said slowly. "Could you clarify what you mean by that?" Joy leaned in closer. "Come on, Keanu. You're one of the richest actors in Hollywood, and yet every few months there's another viral story about you helping someone or donating millions. Are we really supposed to believe it's all coincidence? You're telling me there's no calculation behind the Saint Keanu image?" The audience stirred uncomfortably. Whoopi tried to interject, but Joy's voice sliced through the tension. "I mean, normal people don't have photographers conveniently nearby every time they do something good. It's a bit convenient, don't you think?" Keanu stayed quiet for a long moment, then looked straight at her. "Joy," he said, voice calm but firm, "there's a line between being skeptical and being cruel. And I think you just crossed it." "Cruel?" Joy scoffed, laughing a little too loudly. "I'm just doing my job, Keanu, asking the questions people are afraid to ask. You call it cruel. I call it journalism." That's when something changed in Keanu's tone, something no one had ever heard before. The gentleness was still there, but now it was mixed with something sharper. "You want to talk about manipulation," he said quietly. Let's talk about manipulation, Joy. The air went heavy. Every camera zoomed in closer. Even Joy blinked, slightly thrown by the sudden weight in his voice. You sit here every day, Keanu continued, and you tear people apart for entertainment. You take moments of kindness, vulnerability, or humanity, and you twist them until they fit whatever cynical story you want to tell. Because outrage sells, doesn't it? Joy's smirk wavered. I'm a journalist, she said defensively. I ask tough questions. If you can't handle that, maybe interviews aren't for you. Hard questions? Keanu leaned forward, his voice steady but gaining intensity. Ask me about my work, about art, about life. But don't sit there and question whether my kindness is real. Don't call compassion fake just because you've forgotten what it looks like. The room was dead silent now. No one moved. The audience, the hosts, even the crew, they were all frozen, locked on him. Joy tried to laugh it off, but her tone was shaky. Oh, please, I'm not talking about your personal tragedies, Keanu. I'm talking about your image. There's a difference. No, Joy, he said, shaking his head slowly. There isn't. His voice was rising now, his calm cracking, his passion spilling through every word. You can't separate them. When you accuse someone of faking goodness, you're attacking who they are, not what they promote. You're telling people that decency is impossible, that kindness must always have a price tag. Sonny Hostin tried to intervene. Maybe we should... No, Keanu interrupted, eyes locked on Joy. Let her finish. She clearly has more to say about my supposed performance. He leaned forward, his voice cutting through the tension like a blade. Please, Joy. Tell everyone how helping strangers, paying for medical bills, or treating crew members with respect is just a business move. Go ahead. Joy's cheeks flushed. You see? You've got a list ready to defend yourself. That's not humility. That's PR management. Keanu stood up slowly, his shadow stretching across the table. You want to see PR management, Joy? His voice was still calm, but every word hit like a thunderclap. PR management is pretending cruelty is honesty. It's tearing people down for views and pretending it's courage. That's what you're doing right now. Don't twist this, Joy snapped, but her voice had lost its confidence. Keanu's laugh was quiet, humorless. Twist it? You've been twisting stories for years. You don't care about truth, Joy. You care about reaction. You don't want to inform people. You want to provoke them. You want outrage because outrage keeps the lights on. Keanu, Whoopi tried again. Maybe we should take a break. No, Keanu said firmly, still focused on Joy. This is exactly the kind of conversation that needs to happen on live TV. He stepped closer to the table, his presence magnetic. You want to question my motives? Fine. How about we question yours? How much of your paycheck depends on being mean? How much of your success comes from humiliating others on air? Joy's knuckles turned white as she gripped her pen. How dare you lecture me, she hissed. You're an actor. You pretend for a living. At least I admit it's pretend, Keanu replied instantly. What's your excuse? For a few seconds, there was nothing. No laughter, no chatter. Just silence thick enough to choke on. The cameras were still rolling, but everyone knew they were witnessing something extraordinary. Something raw, real, and irreversible. Joy tried to recover, forcing a smirk. You're proving my point. The mask is coming off. The real Keanu Reeves, the angry one, is showing now. Keanu's voice dropped to a whisper, but it carried across the studio like thunder rolling in the distance. The real me, Joy, is someone who's buried more people than I can count. The real me wakes up every day choosing kindness, even when the world gives me every reason not to. The real me believes kindness matters. And the real you just spent 10 minutes trying to convince people it doesn't. For the first time in her long television career, Joy Behar was silent. Her trademark smirk, the one she wore like armor, had vanished. The words hung between them, too heavy to brush aside. Around the table, the other co-hosts sat frozen in disbelief. Whoopi looked stunned, Sonny was staring down at her notes, and the audience sat in total stillness, their earlier excitement replaced by pure awe. Even the producers behind the cameras hesitated, unsure if they should cut to commercial or keep rolling. It was the kind of silence that didn't just fill the air, it commanded it. And standing in the center of it all was Keanu Reeves, the man who had always avoided confrontation, now burning with quiet intensity. Joy finally found her voice, her tone sharp but trembling. "I'm not a bully, Keanu. I'm asking tough questions. It's what I do. If you can't handle the heat, maybe you shouldn't be here." Keanu's eyes narrowed slightly. His voice dropped again, calm but heavy with meaning. "No, Joy. You're not asking tough questions. You're dressing up cruelty as honesty. You're confusing humiliation with accountability. There's a difference between challenging someone and trying to break them on live television just to get a reaction." The audience shifted, a few people murmuring under their breath, as if they couldn't believe what they were witnessing. Joy crossed her arms, trying to regain her authority. "Oh, come on, Keanu, this is The View. We have real conversations here. You're not above criticism just because you're Hollywood's favorite nice guy." Keanu stepped closer, his voice sharper now, his words cutting through her defense like glass. "Criticism is fair when it's about the work, but what you did was personal. You didn't question a role, a movie, a performance. You questioned my character. You accused me of being fake simply because you can't imagine that genuine kindness could exist in this industry." Joy scoffed, forcing out a laugh, but it sounded hollow. "Oh, please, I'm not accusing you of anything. I'm just saying that everything in Hollywood has an angle. Nobody's that pure, Keanu, not even you." The corner of Keanu's mouth twitched, not a smile, not anger, just disbelief. "You see, that right there, that's the problem," he said. "You've convinced yourself that goodness can't exist without a catch, that anyone who does something decent must be faking it. You've turned cynicism into a religion, Joy, and people watch you every day, absorbing that poison." "Poison?" she repeated, her voice rising. "You think I'm poisoning people because I'm skeptical?" "I think you've stopped being skeptical," Keanu replied, his tone unwavering. "You've become bitter. You've built a career out of tearing others down and calling it journalism. You don't challenge power. You attack sincerity. You punish decency because you can't recognize it anymore." Joy leaned back, visibly rattled, but tried to keep her composure. "You're being overly dramatic," she muttered. "I never mentioned your tragedies or personal life. I'm talking about your public image. You're twisting what I said." Keanu shook his head slowly. "No, I'm not twisting anything. You just don't like that someone's finally standing up to you." He took a deep breath and continued, his tone soft but fierce. "You see, I've spent my whole life trying to make peace with pain. I've lost people I loved more than life itself. I've learned what it means to suffer quietly and still choose to be kind anyway. That's not image, Joy. That's survival." The audience broke into spontaneous applause, short, nervous, but real. The host looked around, unsure whether to join in or stay quiet. Joy's face flushed as she forced a tight smile. "Well, congratulations," she said bitterly. "You've turned this into your big dramatic speech. I hope it plays well on social media." Keanu stared at her, his gaze steady, almost pitying. "You see, even now you can't help yourself. You can't allow a moment of sincerity without twisting it into performance. That's the saddest part." Joy's pen hit the table with a sharp click. "You think you can come on my show and lecture me?" she snapped, her voice breaking slightly. "This isn't a lecture," Keanu said. "It's a mirror. And I think you're finally seeing what's looking back at you." The audience gasped quietly. Joy tried to speak, but nothing came out. The tension in the room was suffocating. Even Whoopi, who had seen just about every kind of live meltdown in her career, looked unsettled. Okay, she said softly, glancing at the producers. "Maybe we should take a quick break." But Keanu wasn't done. His voice softened again, and somehow that made his words hit even harder. "You know what the real tragedy is, Joy?" he asked. "You have power, real power. You have millions of people listening to you every single day. You could use that voice to lift others up, to inspire, to teach, to bring people together. But you don't. You use it to divide, to humiliate, to make people feel smaller so you can look bigger." Joy's face was pale now, her bravado cracking like glass. "I ask questions," she whispered. "You ask questions designed to wound, Keanu countered. You don't want the truth. You want the reaction. You want the outrage, because outrage keeps people watching, and watching keeps the money flowing. The audience started murmuring again, some agreeing, some shocked, all riveted. Keanu continued, his tone low but steady, every word hitting like a weight. That's not journalism, Joy. That's exploitation dressed up as conversation, Joy finally snapped. You think you're some moral authority because you donate money and smile for cameras? Please. You're an actor, Keanu. You live in a world of make-believe. At least I admit what I do is pretend, he replied immediately, not raising his voice but cutting her off with precision. The difference is, I know when the performance ends. The studio went dead silent. No one dared move. The air felt thick, electric. Keanu had turned the tables completely, and for once, Joy Behar had nothing to say. Joy sat frozen, the tension crawling across her face like a shadow she couldn't escape. The cameras were still rolling, but for the first time in her career, she didn't know what to do with them. Her voice, usually so quick, so sharp, so ready to slice through any guest's defense, had vanished into the thick silence that now consumed the room. And across from her, Keanu Reeves wasn't the Hollywood star anymore. He wasn't the charming interview subject or the soft-spoken actor who made audiences melt with quiet humility. No, he was something else entirely now. He was the calm before the storm, the man who had finally decided enough was enough. You know what I think, Joy, he said, voice low and deliberate, like each word had been waiting years to be spoken. I think you've mistaken cruelty for courage. You think if you humiliate someone in front of an audience, that makes you fearless. But it doesn't. It makes you small. It makes you someone who needs to see others bleed just to feel alive. His words didn't shout. They cut. Each syllable was sharp, heavy, and perfectly controlled, the kind of tone that doesn't need to be loud to silence a room. Joy finally tried to gather herself, her voice shaky but defiant. You're overreacting. You're having a meltdown on live television, Keanu. This isn't bravery, it's exposure. You're showing everyone who you really are. Keanu leaned in, elbows resting on the table, his gaze unflinching. No, Joy, he said softly, almost gently. I'm showing you what happens when someone who believes in decency gets pushed too far. When someone who spent a lifetime choosing kindness finally gets tired of watching people like you tear it apart. He paused, and for a brief second, there was something almost mournful in his eyes. You don't expose kindness by mocking it. You expose your own emptiness by doing that. The crowd reacted with a collective murmur, half gasp, half stunned silence. Whoopi's eyes darted between them, trying to signal the crew to cut to commercial, but no one moved. This was the kind of live moment television producers dream of, the kind that can't be staged, the kind that burns itself into memory. Joy's composure began to crack. I'm doing my job, she shouted suddenly, her voice higher than before, brittle and defensive. I'm supposed to ask questions that make people think, that challenge their image. Keanu stood then, slow and deliberate, the movement alone enough to shift the entire energy of the room. No, he said firmly, towering over the table. You ask questions that make people hate. You stir conflict, not thought. You chase chaos and call it journalism. But there's nothing brave about trying to destroy someone's reputation for entertainment. Joy's mouth opened, but nothing came out. Her lips quivered, her pen trembled in her hand, and her once steady voice was gone. The man standing before her wasn't angry anymore. He was resolute, calm, and heartbreakingly honest. You don't even believe in the words you say anymore, Joy, Keanu continued quietly. You've spent so long trying to prove that the world is rotten that you've forgotten what real humanity looks like. The audience began clapping, hesitant at first, then stronger, louder, unstoppable. A wave of applause that broke through the silence like thunder rolling through a canyon. Joy blinked rapidly, her face tightening, trying to keep her mask from falling apart. But Keanu didn't stop there. His voice softened again, not in pity, but in truth. You know what's sad? He asked. You could use your platform to lift people up. You could use your influence to help someone believe in goodness again. But instead, you've turned it into a weapon. You don't inspire people anymore, Joy. You drain them. You take hope and twist it into sarcasm. You take sincerity and turn it into spectacle. And maybe, deep down, you know that's why this doesn't feel like power anymore. It feels like loneliness. That last word, loneliness, hit harder than any insult could. Joy's eyes widened, and for a brief, almost imperceptible second, something flickered behind them. Hurt, shame, maybe even realization, but she couldn't find the strength to respond. Keanu looked around the table, at the other hosts who still sat in silence, then back to Joy. "You wanted to see the real me," he said quietly. "Here I am. I'm not perfect. I've made mistakes. I've failed people. But I've also tried every single day to leave the world a little better than I found it. And if that makes me a target for your cynicism, then so be it. I'd rather be mocked for caring than applauded for cruelty." He reached for his jacket draped over the back of the chair, folding it neatly over his arm. The studio lights reflected faintly against the calm steel in his eyes as he turned to face Joy one final time. "I hope someday," he said softly, "you find peace with yourself. Because the way you tear others down, it doesn't come from confidence, it comes from pain. And the truth is, you can't heal your own wounds by making others bleed." With that, he nodded politely to Whoopi, offered a brief, respectful smile to the audience, and began walking off. The stage. The camera followed him as he moved across the floor, the crowd rising instinctively into a standing ovation, not for the movie star, but for the man who just spoke what millions had felt for years but never said out loud. Joy Behar sat at the table, motionless. Her hands were still clutching her cue cards, but her face said everything: shock, guilt, disbelief. The woman who had built her career on always having the last word had finally met someone who didn't play by her script. Whoopi looked down at her notes, sighed deeply, and whispered into the stunned silence, "We'll be right back." But even when the show cut to commercial, no one in the audience moved. They had just witnessed something raw, something that didn't belong to show business, something that went beyond ratings. Backstage, Keanu walked quietly through the corridor, the noise of the studio fading behind him. A producer tried to speak, but he raised a hand gently, signaling there was nothing more to say. He didn't need to explain himself. He had already said everything that mattered. That day, the clip would go viral within hours, millions of views, millions of comments, and an outpouring of emotion from people across the world. Some called it the Views Reckoning. Others called it the day Keanu Reeves saved kindness. But for those who watched it live, it wasn't about fame or controversy. It was about watching truth pierce through noise. And as for Joy Behar, she sat long after the segment ended, staring at the empty chair across from her. The chair where, for a few unforgettable minutes, someone reminded the world that decency isn't weakness and kindness isn't a PR stunt. It's a choice.